Hello everyone, my name is Andrew Youn, and today we're going to be talking about gamification and its applications to the classroom. But before we start all of that, I want to do a quick test, I guess. So imagine you have a board of 3 or 4 buttons, let's say 4 buttons in front of you. Just imagine it, and I'll be giving you a set of instructions to follow. Ready? Let's begin. Press button 2 for 2 seconds. Press button 3 for 3 seconds. Quickly tap button 1 2 times. Quickly press button 4 5 times. Did you get all that? Kind of boring, right? Well, there's an actually more fun way to do that. Well, let's start with the imaginary button board in front of you. That's kind of boring, right? It's just buttons that are labeled 1, 2, 3, 4. Instead of that, maybe we can do something more fun. I know, a game controller. Why a game controller? Well, there's a lot of different ways to interact with it, and it's still pretty interesting to, just fiddle around with. But all good game controllers need a good game to follow it. So maybe we should replace my instructions with just a video game. Both require me to do certain tasks at certain times, so why not just change them? And that's the topic, that is what gamification is. But more specifically, what is gamification? Well, gamification is the application of game design in many non-gaming areas. Its 3 main goals is to communicate, encourage, and reinforce learning and some habit that you want to follow. So let's take one of my favorite games, Super Mario Bros. As an example. A lot of people have heard of it probably, especially since Nintendo has recently been celebrating Mario's 35th anniversary. So let's take one of Super Mario's most iconic stages, 1-1. It's pretty easy to forget about this one because it's the first stage in 8 worlds, but there's a lot of game design that went into this that's still applicable to gamification. So let's start. This is a coin block. It's the first thing you see, but and as you see it, it looks kind of scary, right? But no, it's not really that scary. It's not aggressive. It doesn't move towards you. It doesn't actively force players to, do something about it. It just kind of sits there blinking at you. It lets you take your own pace whenever you start, so you can get yourself mentally and physically prepared for the challenges in front of you. And by taking your own pace, it encourages players to, try to figure everything out before they start taking their first steps into this game. But once they do, they're rewarded, especially if they've learned how to jump by now, which they might have not. But if they do, they'll be earning a shiny gold coin, one of the main sources of points in Super Mario Bros. Next is the Goomba. It's that mushroom-shaped thing over there with angry eyebrows. This one, unlike the coin block, is a bit aggressive. It waddles towards you. Kind of scary, right? Well, if you don't do anything about it, the Goomba will touch Mario, and then Mario will just die. And no one wants that, right? Because of it forces players to learn how to avoid the Goomba. In this instance, by jumping. Players cannot move ahead without learning the most essential part of Mario's moveset, to jump. But even if they do fail, the dying by the Goomba doesn't really mean much in this game, because once you do die, you'll be set to the very start, and nothing much will have happened, because you've only moved a couple blocks forward, you're only sent a couple blocks back. So there's not much risk into taking this, since it is the first challenge after all. And the final interaction is the mushroom. This one is actually a mushroom, unlike the Goomba down below. And looks kind of scary because it is pretty similar to the Goomba at first glance. And it really does look aggressive, doesn't it? Well, this mushroom moves from the right to the left, and players might be shocked to see whenever it falls down and tries to catch up to you. But actually, this mushroom isn't that mean after all, and the game actually encourages you to collect it even if you try to jump over it. Because of the height of the blocks limits Mario's jump and forces players to most likely fall into the mushroom. But because of this, players are actually rewarded for that, even if they didn't mean to collect it. And it shows that these mushrooms are actually good mushrooms, and starts the basis of collecting mushrooms and defeating Goombas. in Super Mario Bros. Well, what does that mean for the classroom, Andrew? Excellent question. So, just like a coin block, in the classroom, we can create better lessons. Instead of just lessons that just go on and on and on in a lecture, we could try to create lessons that are interactive and fun, but not forced onto the player, because even as you continue on, we need some non-aggressive interactions. Instead of having the interaction be mandatory or have to take place, you can encourage students to take those actions and like help them get points, help them level up. But sometimes you do need a challenge of some sort, kind of like the Goomba. And in that instance, maybe a test or quiz might be due. Even if these are kind of scary at first, they help the students to force to learn the material, even if it's not the nicest thing to do unless they're prepared. And sometimes tests and quizzes shouldn't mean that much, actually. Just like that Goomba in the very first level, and how even if you do fail it a lot of times, you'll only be sent back a little bit instead of just being sent all the way back to the beginning from the very end stage of the game. And just like that mushroom, players may get discouraged and kind of scared of something at first. And in that instance, gamification can help students be re-encouraged to take that next step. Because in the end, the goal of gamification is to reinforce the good habits and encourage students to take that next step. But there are some problems with gamification, such as overloading the student with too much information. Gamification may be pretty cool, but if you think about it, that's a lot of things to consider, from those coin blocks to the Goombas to the mushrooms. Imagine if this was what you were given at the very beginning of a game and you had no clue what any of this meant, right? Gamification is kind of like that too if you're not careful. If you put too much new information that's really not that standard, students will be overwhelmed and too dizzy and they won't have fun or enjoy the gamification, and you'd just be better off sticking with your original lesson plans. Well, if you're gonna do that though, the way to solve it is just put everything in moderation, everything slowly, just like in school. Gamification is actually really similar to normal work in the classroom, such as whenever you're doing math, you don't just start with calculus and integrals. You have to start with simple addition and simple algebra, or simple geometry even. And as you keep continuing to build those skills, you can add more and more complex layers, just kind of like how gamification works. You can't just start Mario off trying to fight Bowser. Every player would lose then because they don't know what to do. But you have to keep building on the challenges you've created. You can't just give students everything at once and expect them to know everything. And that's my talk. Thank you for listening, and this is actually a topic I'm really interested in real life too, and not just for this homework activity. So if you'd like to know more, please contact me, I guess.